Hello, it is Ed Butowsky with Chapwoodfinance.com, and I'm honored to have a Hollywood legend, Kevin Sorbo. Most of you know him as Hercules. I know him as a friend and a producer, a director, or soon-to-be director, I would say, and a very well-known actor, but more importantly, a really great guy. And Kevin, thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure. And by the way, I am director. I started directing back in my Hercules days.
You did? Okay, so you got that as well.
I've been DGA for a long time.
Okay, Kevin, what I'd like to do, as you know, I'm a wealth manager, and the purpose of ChapwoodFinance.com is to really give people perspective and knowledge on how different investments work and what happens out there in the world versus just quick sound bites. So I want to dive right into the business of Hollywood. A lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot, but some people start off as actors and then start to migrate into other areas behind the camera and behind the scenes, away from being in front of the camera. What is the motivation, and why is that happening a lot these days?
Well, I think the transition sort of makes sense. If you're lucky enough to get a big series like I did with Hercules, I mean, Hercules ran 7 years. I got to brag a little bit. We passed Baywatch as the most watched TV show in the world. When you're on the set every day like that, 5, 6 days a week for 7 years, you learn a lot about the other side of the camera, not just as an actor being in front of the camera. And it was normal for me by the 3rd year that I went to the producers and said, look, I want to direct. And they gave me a show right away. So I ended up directing on that show and learned a lot. I mean, it's just, everybody reads a script and they have an idea what they think the vision of the script should be. Everybody has their own 2 cents they want to throw in. There's always arguments on the set with producers, directors, and actors about how a scene should look. Director usually has ultimate say. And, it's just something you want to get involved in. Like I said, I've been very fortunate. After Hercules, I did Andromeda. I was executive producer on that. I got to sit in the room with these guys to talk about budgets, to talk about casting, to talk about visual effects, to talk about props, casting with wardrobe, makeup, all that stuff. So I learned a lot by just listening and being in there. And it's just something I love. I still love acting more than anything else. That's still my first love. But I do love the creation of putting these movies and these TV shows together.
And I've been fortunate to be in and around the business through friends like you and some other people that I know. And the motivation isn't necessarily the money. It's really the love of the business, yeah. and I know that. Having said that, we oftentimes see these big budget films and we wonder, how are they making money? Because when you see a movie out there that has a $100 million budget, I mean, don't they have to make $100, $150 million to even break even?
They got a lot. Usually when you make, with the budget of a movie, half of that budget, if it's a $100 million movie, they usually say $50 million just for the promotion of it, just for the P&A of it to get out there. So it's huge. But it goes beyond that because there's distribution fees with the films, with the theaters you're dealing with. There's deals they put up with merchandising. I mean, there's so many other different facets that work into it. So yeah, it's tough. It's tough, and that's why the world that I got into as a producer, I started my own production company 6 years ago. It's called Touchwood Productions. Was really to start looking at the smaller budget movies because I think they're just more viable to get a bigger return for the investor.
And I think so too. In fact, right now you're involved with a project where you're actually starting to raise money, small amounts of money, hopefully bigger amounts, but you're raising money for Trial by Fire. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Trial by Fire is it's sort of a genre that I've fallen into. I did a movie years ago called What If. I say years ago, it was only three and a half years ago.
Right.
But What If is what you would term a fake-friendly movie. It's sort of in that vein of Blindside, where it's just family-friendly. It's got a message. It's got a lot of drama. It's got comedy elements to it. It's a movie that all ages can see without parents worrying about what their kids are going to be looking at. They're looking at something that's got a positive message in it. And Trial by Fire is no different than that. It's a modern day look at sort of a Karate Kid type of movie, and it's got all levels of all ages involved. Again, there's great drama in it, there's great comedy in it, but it's a good and very well written story. And this is one of the many projects I'm attached to right now. One of the projects right now that we're looking to hopefully shoot this year.
Because I want everyone who's watching right now to know that I reached out to you because I wanted to showcase this. Not only you and the business of Hollywood, but also this particular project, because many people who are looking to invest, they wake up and they think, where am I going to put my money? I can put my money into the equity markets, which people do. They put it in the alternative markets. And they wonder, how do I get involved with Hollywood? How do I get involved with putting money into a movie? And, these small projects, I can't say, nobody will guarantee they're always going to make money. But as you said earlier, and I've studied this quite a bit, some of these smaller movies have a much greater chance of having a good return for their investors versus these enormous budgets. So I really like what you're doing. And, at the same time, there's a PowerPoint presentation here that people can look at, and they can get a hold of you through your company as well. Is that right?
No, most definitely. I mean, here's what's happened. The reason I started my own production company is I got tired of my managers and agents just waiting for phone calls to come in.
Right.
And instead of actively looking for jobs for me. I mean, I've got a long record of success between Hercules and Andromeda. I've also shot over 40 movies, like 350 hours of movies and television under my belt. And I wanted to look for other ways and other projects that I wanted to be part of directing, producing, and also acting in. So my production company, Touchwood Productions, was born about 6 years ago. And you look at what these movies are doing and what people are looking for as well. Like Soul Surfer is a movie I did with Dennis Quaid and Helen Hunt. That movie was financed by a gentleman named David Tice out of Dallas, Texas. Never in the business whatsoever. But he loved the story, loved what it was about, loved that it had a great message, positive message. He jumped on board. It was a higher budget movie. It was $17 million, but he put every penny into that. But here's what happens. You get a studio picks it up, like Sony picked it up. And then they tell you that the $17 million movie needs $85 million to break even. So it's kind of brutal. So you got to go down in cost. And these $2 to $5 million movies that I'm doing don't take as much as a break-even point to start making profits on it. And I'm doing, like I said, a lot of movies right now that private investors, people outside of Hollywood altogether, are looking at. So they want to be part of that world. They want to be part of looking at what can they do to get a positive message out there. Because most people I'm meeting out there are people that are saying, you know what, we want movies that are family-friendly, not the ones that Hollywood keeps pumping out there with the heavy R ratings. I'm not opposed to R-rating movies if they're a good movie. I want to be in them myself. But
right.
I got involved in this world, and it's been wonderful. We have a movie out right now called Abel's Field. Abel's Field was a small movie that I put together with the producer and director of the movie. We took almost 3 years to raise the money for it. We shot for $2.5 million. Shot it in Louisiana, which has great tax credits. It's a very friendly state for shooting movies in. And Sony Studios picked it up. We were hoping for theatrical. We didn't get theatrical, but what we got was 200,000 copies shipped to Walmart alone, and Amazon jumped on board and said Redbox and now Netflix. So there's a lot of other avenues to make your money back on these movies.
I mean, this is perfect, because one of the things I tell my clients is we're always trying to reduce waste. Waste in terms of too much risk, waste in too much overhead in a business. And what you're really doing now is saying, hey, let's raise $2 to $5 million, on some of these projects, reduce some of the waste and overhead, and let's go directly to the end consumer. And I applaud you for it. I think it's great. And anybody who's interested in looking at possibly investing into your movie, obviously they can look at the PowerPoint, they can get a hold of your company. But more importantly, you're a great guy, and I really wish you a lot of success. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. And I want to throw in one more thing, that a lot of people are looking for a slate of movies. They want to hedge their bets, and they want to maybe do 5 movies and throw in $15 million, $10 million. And there's a lot of $2 to $3 million movies out there that are very good, with great cast waiting to jump in, and which are obviously great for selling out over here in the States, but overseas as well. Because it's all those different places you got to look at. Because the overseas market is huge. It can be up to 70% of the revenue you make on any movie.
I know. In fact, people don't realize that only 5% of the world's population is right here in North America. There's another 95% of the market out there. They might not all speak English, but I guess we can dub over whatever language, right? So,
very true.
Well, Kevin, thank you very much. Take care.